Hello, this is Mike Cook, and I'm back in my new home gym with another edition of Anti-Doping Updates. This is episode 32. Today we've got two great cases to talk about, both of which are cases not involving a positive test for banned substances, but rather detection of doping in different ways. All right, let's get started. The first case comes from the world of athletics, and it is Abiba Tekelu Gebremeskel, who is a marathon runner from Ethiopia, ranked number 58 in the world. She was had consistent results in around 2 hours and 30 minutes for the marathon until just a couple of years ago when she had a dramatic improvement of a couple minutes, several minutes, and now her personal best is 2 hours and 22 minutes, and she has a number of results around that range. That was most recently in the Valencia Marathon in 2019. More on that specific race later. So, World Athletics is the international federation that governs the sport of athletics, and they have delegated their anti-doping responsibilities to a unit of World Athletics called the Athletics Integrity Unit. And Athletics Integrity Unit charged Tekelu Gebremeskel with an anti-doping violation in February of 2021 for hematological abnormalities in her athlete biological passport. She requested a hearing before the AIU, and the Athletics Integrity Unit delegates its responsibilities for holding a hearing to Sport Resolutions, which is an independent nonprofit agency based out of London in the UK, and they convened a panel to hold the hearing and make a decision on behalf of the Athletics Integrity Unit. The Athletics Integrity Unit proposed to suspend her for 4 years. So a hearing was held in November of 2020, and prior to the hearing, Tekelu Gebremeskel had requested an extension of time so that she could submit documents, including genetic testing, but she ended up submitting that evidence after the deadline, so the panel from Sport Resolutions did not consider that. So back to blood doping. The blood doping is prohibited by the World Anti-Doping Code, and there's 3 main types of blood doping. One, administering EPO, recombinant ETO, which is manufactured artificial EPO. The second, and that EPO stimulates the production of red blood cells. The second method is administering oxygen carriers to increase hemoglobin, or HGB. And the third method is blood transfusion, which is directly administering you take out your blood ahead of time and then you put it back in shortly before the race, or you just inject someone else's blood that is the same blood type of yours. That's blood doping. All those methods are prohibited methods according to the World Anti-Doping Code. So how do you detect that? The way that's detected is the athlete biological passport. And what that measures is it measures HBG, which is the ratio of mature to immature red blood cells, which is the RET percentage. And it also measures the ratio of HGB to the RET percentage, and that's known as the off score. So generally, an athlete's HGB, an athlete's RET percentage, and an athlete's off score are all going to be very similar over time. If there's spikes in any one of those variables, that is an indication of manipulation of blood or blood doping, and that's the evidence of a anti-doping rule violation. So the AIU, so in Ms. Tekelu Gebremeskel's case, all her scores were spiking up and down really high, and the AIU alleged that the sample taken on November 30, 2019, the day before the Spain marathon, Valencia Spain marathon, where she had her 2 hours and 22-minute personal record, that had a high HGB score, a low RET percentage, and a high off score, and that was evidence of blood doping. Tekelu Gebremeskel disagreed and said that it wasn't evidence of blood doping, it was evidence that there's other reasons for the abnormalities, and she wanted genetic testing and a ferritin test. However, the ferritin test that she submitted was from a 23-year-old male, and Tekelu Gebremeskel is a 24-year-old female. So the Sport Resolutions panel indicated that that wasn't reliable. That's very generous for them to say that. So they found that the most likely explanation of the abnormalities in the athlete biological passport was the administration of EPO, and therefore she had committed an anti-doping rule violation. They also concluded that this was intentional and subject to a 4-year disqualification and loss of results, and so that was the result of that case. 4-year suspension for blood doping. Okay, the next case I'm going to talk about is Russian weightlifters. They're in the news again, specifically Svetlana Shymkova, Oksana Slavenko, and Rina Kiryev. All of them are Russian weightlifters. And the International Weightlifting Federation has delegated the administration of its anti-doping program to the International Testing Agency, which is an independent nonprofit agency based out of Lausanne, Switzerland. They analyzed data from the Moscow laboratory, which were part of the McLaren report. The McLaren report investigated allegations of doping, state-sponsored doping at the Moscow laboratory up as a result of the Sochi 2014 Winter Olympics. As part of, once the RUSADA, the Russian anti-doping agency, had resisted turning over this data, and eventually they did. And the McLaren report investigated it and found that, among other things, new samples from various athletes and various sports from Russia were reported as negative when in fact they were positive. And that's the case for these 3 weightlifters, Svetlana Shymkova, Oksana Slavenko, and Rina Kiryev. They all had positive tests. And so on analyzing this data, they found that these are positive tests going back to 2012, and therefore Shymkova, Slavenko, and Kiryev were all sanctioned with a 2 of them were already suspended. The International Testing Agency imposed another suspension on them and disqualified results going all the way back to 2012. None of these athletes contested the suspensions. Mostly they're retired athletes, no longer competing at international levels, and so they didn't bother contesting it. And so that's the results from that. Hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, like and subscribe. I'll be back with another exciting episode next week, and I'll talk to you then.